Hey, welcome back. This is another framework. So this framework is about the investigation of the functions of life in Paramecium and one named photosynthetic unicellular organism. So it let us choose which photosynthetic unicellular organism we wanted, and we picked Chlamydomonas. So everything that we talk about today will be either about Paramecium or Chlamydomonas. This should be a pretty brief lecture, I would hope. All right, so here we go. Follow along in your notes. The testable material is mainly about describing characteristics of each and how the characteristics enable each one to perform all of the functions of life, even though they are single-celled organisms. So let's get into it. Whoops. All right, so describe characteristics of Paramecium that allow it to perform the functions of life. So this would be your testable framework here. All right, so let's talk about what it is that Paramecium can do and all of the things. So on a test, what would you do if you came across this type of question? First, you want to see how many marks it's worth. Is it worth 2 marks, 3 marks, 4 marks, 8 marks? You need to know, okay? If it is worth, let's say, 3 marks, right? Marks are like points, so that would be about 3 points. So that lets you know about how in depth you need to go with your answer. So if I were you and it was worth 3 marks, I would then talk about 3 to 4 pieces or characteristics that allow the Paramecium to perform the functions of life. If it asks you to describe all of them, then that means identifying all 8. So it just depends how the question is worded. If it said describe characteristics or describe all, you look at the marks and then you sort of continue on. All right, so let's discuss this crazy critter. So Paramecium, these things only live in fresh water. They are denoted as a large causer, if you will, of diarrhea. These things are in fresh water. People tend to not handle them well in their digestive tract. When you travel, these are usually some of the things that can cause waterborne illnesses for you. There are many, many, many things that can cause waterborne illnesses or digestive upset to your digestive system, your GI. So this is just one of many, okay? But they're very simple. And yet here we are, single-celled, and they can carry out everything that you can carry out. So I'm going to move this over here because I don't want it right there. All right, so let's look at it. So, let's go back. All right, so let's start on the outside and work our way in. So these are cilia. You have cilia in your throat. In this case, because it's aquatic, it helps it to swim around and they beat. It's like a kind of a violent swoosh. Your cilia help you to get unwanted particles out of your esophagus. It's why if you accidentally breathe while you're chewing a chip, you start snotting and choking and you think you're dying, and really it's just your cilia trying to get you to cough up the chip. In this case, they're used for movement. So it just depends what type of cilia and where they are in the body for what they do. Okay, they have an anal pore. That is just a way for them to excrete waste. Contractile vacuoles, that helps them with homeostasis. So these things are living in water. So you can take in too much water even if you're an organism that lives in the aquatic environment. So when they take in too much water, the more water they take in, right, the contractile vacuoles start to swell. And then when they need to get rid of it, they contract like that. And they squeeze, and out goes the excess water. These things are covered in membranes, of course, and so this very easily leaves. And they have many, many contractile vacuoles, and that's one way to maintain homeostasis. The oral groove, it's just a way of taking in nutrients. Food vacuoles are there to hold the food until this Paramecium needs those nutrients to be accessed. So it's like a holding place. And then it has 2 nuclei, which is pretty special, to be honest. So it has a micro and a macro. Overall, this is pretty impressive for a single-celled organism. It can do all of the things. It will grow until it reaches a maximum surface area to volume ratio, and then it will split. It reproduces asexually via fusion, and it also can reproduce sexually. So what you'll find is that most of the time, certain organisms prefer to reproduce asexually, and it just depends. But they will prefer to reproduce asexually unless the population is stressed, and then they will, there's our bell, reproduce sexually. Okay. So they're made of cells? Yes, they are. They're single-celled. Can they recognize and respond to environmental change? Yes, they beat the cilia to swim around to try to get to the food or get away from certain, things. Capability for reproduction? Yes, mitosis is their asexual, and they also have fusion, and then they can reproduce sexually. Do they exchange energy and matter with the environment? Yes, they have an anal pore for that. Do they have metabolism? Yes, they're cytoplasm, so the jelly of the cell that fills us all up, right? The jelly of the cell, cytoplasm, theirs has digestive enzymes in it that dissolve and catalyze their version of digestion and cellular respiration. Do they exchange energy and matter with the environment? Again, yes, they do. They are heterotrophic, so they have to eat things in their own way in order to break down nutrients and absorb that. So you are a heterotroph, they are a heterotroph. Maintenance of homeostasis, that's what the contractile vacuoles are for. That's how they, and then growth we already spoke about. So in general, not too bad. Let's go to our photosynthetic counterpart. Oh, these are just pictures and videos. It's giving you some time to fill in your blocks on your notes and all of that. Here's some more videos and some more time to fill in the blocks. All right, Chlamydomonas. So these are our photosynthetic pals that we have selected. I'm going to move my face out of the way. All right. So one, we had to pick something that is single-celled and photosynthetic. That was just part of the IB's criteria. So we picked these guys because they're simple. They're also eukaryotic, which is interesting. So you are a eukaryote, they are a eukaryote. That means they have a nucleus. Now, the other interesting thing is they are photosynthetic, but you can actually find these things in way more places than you could ever find paramecium. These things live in dirt, right? All kinds of soil. They live in fresh water, in salt water, in the oceans, and even in the snow. They can be found on a mountaintop. It doesn't matter. They can pretty much be anywhere, and it's very impressive, very, very impressive. These things are very widely spread as a single-celled organism. So very nice, Chlamydomonas. So how did they carry out all of the functions of life? Well, for one, they're single-celled. They are made of cells. Check. They happen to be eukaryotic. They have a nucleus. Okay. Two, can they recognize and respond to environmental change? Yes, they can. So they have this awesome, they call it an eye spot. It's just a pigmented spot that can sense light. It's super neat. But what it does is it senses light and then it swims toward the light so that it can perform photosynthesis. So anyway, yes, it does respond to environmental change. Can it reproduce? This also has the capability of asexual and sexual reproduction. So it can still do all those things. Does it exchange energy and matter? Yes, it does. It takes it in as an autotroph via photosynthesis, and then it gives off oxygen as a byproduct, which all photosynthetic things tend to do. So those are the two ways it exchanges energy and matter with the environment. Does it have metabolism? Yes, once again, its cytoplasm contains helpful enzymes that break down and catalyze metabolic reactions. Maintenance of homeostasis for these are still maintained by contractile vacuoles again, So their contractile vacuoles in this one are blue, but it's still a squeezing. It's still to push things out to maintain homeostasis. Does it grow? Yes, it still grows until it reaches surface area to volume ratio. That is maximum efficiency. And then if it surpasses that, it will divide and make new, either asexually or sexually. Just depends. Now, if you're looking at these crazy flagella, these things are locomotive. They move it. And so usually they either whip or they kind of work like a brush stroke or something. They just like whoosh. And they can go either direction. So it's not like it's super, super diverse, but it can forward and backwards and then slowly to the side. This thing is interesting because it has a cell wall and a cell membrane. This is not common of something that would resemble an animal. This, in my guess, is a protist because it doesn't hit the criteria of being an animal. You're not a heterotroph. But it's not a plant either, right? Because it can move around and swim. So this, usually we put things in the protist category that do not fit in animal, plant, or fungi. And so it's sort of like your scientific junk drawer. You just throw the miscellaneous stuff in there. So this has the characteristics of an animal in a way that it can move and swim. But it has characteristics of a plant in that it has a cell wall. Oops, there goes another bell. In that it has a cell wall and a chloroplast. And so in that regard, this gets shoved into like a protist category or protista. So there's that. And then these are the notes and the videos in case you want to see it swim around that go with your packets. And so there's page 1. You can pause and write down. And then here is the second one. And you can pause and write down for that. And that's it for today. So I'll see you in another video soon. So just to be clear, that was number, hang on. That was 1.1.A2 accomplished.